Our text says, and there shall be earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. The earth is certainly an active place, and earthquakes happen every day. Earthquake recordings have risen from about 2,000 in the 19th century to 20,000 approximately in the 21st century. Many of them are underwater, and on average, earthquakes that are 2 and less happen hundreds of times a day worldwide. Major earthquakes greater than 7 happen about once a month. And then we have the great earthquakes of 8 or higher that usually occur about once a year, maybe twice. Now, if we were to listen to many of the TV evangelists and the prophets of doom that we see on Christian TV, we would be led to believe that because of the amount of earthquakes that we are seeing, the end is near. And it is near, but not because of that reason. What we have to remember is that we have now better ways of recording this seismic activity. And so it's not the amount of earthquakes, but as the Bible says, it is where they are happening. And so when we see earthquakes in unusual places, that is really the time to take note. Earthquakes, a powerful force to be reckoned with. And as we near the end of time, we are going to see that the earth is going to continue to groan and cry out for God to come. Even nature is testifying of the nearness of Christ. Our next one is increased knowledge. Our text comes from Daniel chapter 12 and verse 4. And it says, "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." Since the 1900s, the explosion of knowledge has been incredible. We can look back on great discoveries in medicine, science, industry, and technology that have shaped our futures. And we tend to focus on these as a sign of the end. But the Bible tells us that it is a knowledge of God that will increase, and that is what we need to focus on. Obviously, there are benefits from the knowledge that we can obtain, but there is also a danger that as we become more informed of the world around us, our knowledge of God and our relationship with Him can become diminished. Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6 says, "God's people are destroyed through a lack of knowledge." That's not a lack of knowledge of technology or industry or medicine or science. It's a lack of knowledge of God Himself. It's a warning for these last days. You know, when we think about the world we live in, we are bombarded by the media. Our lives are almost defined by social media. You know, when we think about all the different platforms we have now, Twitter, TikTok, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, and whatever else there is out there. We are currently bombarded by media. That media, if we're not careful, can shape the way we think. It can shape the way we think, and it does. You know, how often do you see not just young people, but people of varying age groups walking around with their phone in their hand, and they are fixated on that tiny little screen? Knowledge, information going in to our minds constantly every day. And yet our Bibles stay closed. And it's true, we can use media to search for sermons and Bible texts and prayers. But generally, on the whole, for the most part, the information that is going through people's minds is not a godly type of information. You know, when we think about all of these platforms, you know, there is always that danger. Things can be used for good or bad, and there is always the danger that our young people can get hooked on various different things that they find on social media. And so we need to be careful. We need to be careful. We live in a world where people are not only driven by knowledge, but driven by time. They are consumed by it. It's almost as if the two go hand in hand. It's not only about getting the information, but how quickly I can get that information. They are like inseparable partners. And when we look at this term, running to and fro, we completely see what that is all about in the world that we are living in. But on the other side of that, on the other side of thinking about communication and transport and all these things that we are finding ways of making quicker and quicker and quicker, there is also an application to this text that we see in some other translations of the Bible, where there is a sense of searching for God, trying to seek out God. And I like that. I like that because it gives us two different types of viewpoint on this running to and fro, this searching out, this knowledge. When we think about it, a searching for God is really where we all need to be. That's where our minds need to be focused. A statement was made that a week's worth of the New York Times contains more information than the average person would come across in an entire lifetime living in the 18th century. That's incredible. To think that a person living in the 18th century, the knowledge that they would gather or acquire or learn would fit into a newspaper. How far have we come in these times?